You're listening to Systemic Era Podcast. The failure was designed.
DC Insider. There's only one way to end a brainless egomaniac's spiraling crisis, based on an article by Roxanne Cooper. Trump turned the strait into a bargaining chip. Robert Reich's point is simple enough to survive the spin. The latest U.S. Iran escalation did not emerge from nowhere. It flowed from a June 17 memorandum on the Strait of Hormuz that left Iran with effective control, gave the U.S. little in return, and expired before it could even pretend to be durable. Now Iran is charging passage fees again. Oil prices have jumped, and Trump is reaching for the same toll logic he claimed was illegal when someone else used it. Power sat with the White House. This was not some accidental drift of events. The institutional power was in the Oval Office, and the decision was made there for a domestic political goal: lower gas prices before the midterm elections. That is the central fact. The administration did not negotiate for strategic advantage or regional stability. It negotiated under electoral pressure, then dressed the result up as policy. That matters because it clarifies responsibility. When a president uses foreign policy as a temporary price control stunt, he is not being forced by events. He is choosing a fast headline over a lasting settlement. Diplomacy was hollowed out. Reich's description of the team is devastating because it is so plausible. A vice president who knows nothing about negotiating treaties, a defense secretary reduced to bombing, and a State Department absent from the table. That is not a functioning foreign policy process. It is an executive shell game. When diplomacy is stripped of diplomats, you get coercion in formal clothing. The memorandum did not secure safe passage through the strait. It merely handed Iran a framework to make arrangements, then left the U.S. with a 6-day toll ban and no enforceable guarantee. That is not leverage. It is surrender with stationery. The framing is the lie. The source keeps one foot in procedural language, but the politics are cruder than that. Calling this a memorandum of understanding obscures the basic fact that the stronger actor used its authority badly and then treated the consequences as if they were weather. The misdirection is familiar. Deliberate choices are recast as confusion, and predictable blowback is sold as a surprise. Trump attacked Iran, made a weak deal, and now the administration is reacting to the consequences of its own bargain. That is not complexity. It is responsibility trying to hide behind crisis language. Hypocrisy as method. The Rubio detail is the tell. Less than 3 weeks ago, charging tolls on international waterways was presented as a violation of international law. Now Trump says the U.S. will charge a 20% fee on cargo passing through the same strait. The principle was never a principle. It was a prop. This is how authoritarian politics corks legality for enemies, improvisation for allies, and total flexibility for the leader's convenience. Rules matter when they discipline others. They vanish when they constrain power. Congress is the remaining brake. Reich is right to point to Congress, but the fact that Congress may be the only available brake is itself an indictment. If lawmakers are waiting 3 months to undo a costly and unnecessary war, they are already late. The relevant question is not whether Congress can be persuaded to act. It is why so many members have already tolerated a president who can drag the country toward war by impulse and then auction off the consequences. The only serious constraint left in the source is legislative rejection of executive adventurism. That is how weak the guardrails have become. The larger pattern: this story is about more than the Strait of Hormuz. It is about a political class that treats state power as a short-term partisan instrument, then expects the public to absorb the bill. The costs arrive where they always do: fuel, food, freight, household budgets. The benefits, if there were any, stayed inside the campaign calendar. That is the larger pattern here. Executive recklessness is made to look like negotiation. Institutional emptiness is made to look like strategy. And the public is asked to pay for the privilege of being lied to. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to AltaNet for today's article. With it automated voice of Bryce. Thanks for listening.